Good morning. Live from New York City, March 14th, Sunday. Um, let's set our intention for today for this class by saying the Four Immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. I know we've missed a week. It seems like it's been ages since we've been together, but we'll do a quick review. I know you're probably sick of reviews, but someday you'll be teaching this to other people, so it's good to have it really solid. So, seated on a cushion or on the floor. Cushion's good. It's always good to get your hips either in line or above your knees. You could do legs folded like this, half lotus if you're comfortable, full lotus if you're exceptionally flexible. It doesn't really matter. It's just what your comfort level is. And the point is to have your body kind of in a relaxed but somewhat alert state. So the spine is straight, back is straight but not rigid, not tense, relaxed. Shoulders not back but just kind of relaxed. The hands, you can put them down like this, you can put them like this, you can do it like this. Some people do the ring finger and the thumb. I like this. Open palm, back of the hand. That's comfortable for me. This is comfortable for me. Find what works. There's a Buddha there, just so you can see. Always good to see the Buddha. They say images of the Buddha, like a statue or even a tanka, is not a representation, but is the Buddha in actuality. Think about that. Head tilted slightly, chin down slightly, head slightly tilted forward, neck not rigid, but there's an uprightness to this posture. Tibetan Buddhist tradition, they meditate with their eyes open, but the gaze is not fixed intensely, nor is it spaced out and unfocused. It's resting lightly on whatever is in front of you. Teeth are generally slightly open, but the mouth is closed. We're going to breathe through our nose unless we can't, and then we'll breathe through our mouth. No tension in the jaw, though. We've talked before about taking this seat with a certain amount of dignity and respect, both self-respect and respect for others, because when we set our intentions in the beginning, we're setting our intention really to connect to all beings. Somehow the intention of practicing meditation or Buddhism, if you are practicing Buddhism, is for the benefit of all beings in a way, which is a very big concept and a difficult one to grasp. But a lot of the teachings is about expanding our view of ourselves, our view of how we relate to the world, our view of the world, our view of other people and other beings, expanding it, because however advanced we like to think of human beings, in essence, our faculties are quite small. Right? I mean, human beings have only been on this earth in comparison to the age of the planet and other animals' existence on the planet. We've been here a very short time. Our sense faculties are very limited. You think about your faculty of sight, which is how you perceive visually the world, is very small compared to some giant telescope or some bird's eye view camera or panoramic lens. It's very small. It's very narrow. So is the hearing, so is the sense of smell and taste. You could smell something without a wind, something that's we don't have much distance that we could smell things for, I guess, compared to like animals or dogs that can smell things way more precisely and intensely. And so we are retraining, the mind to go beyond these sense faculties and beyond um, what we've learned, what we've been told, what we've been taught, how we've locked into a certain perception of ourselves in relationship to the world. We're trying to go beyond that. So you take this seat with a certain amount of dignity about that intention. The breath is our anchor. We use a relaxed breath. You could take a deep breath if you need a burst of oxygen, but the breath should be relaxed. Not short, not too deep. And when we begin to meditate, we start with the breath. We focus on that area between the nose and the mouth. Focus on the in-breath, focus on the out-breath. And what's going to happen as we start this practice is that we're going to think, we're going to have thoughts, which is natural. And when we do that, we're going to go back to the breath. We're going to leave the thought where it is rather than follow the thought and get into the thought, get into the story of the thought. Let the story and the engine of the thought pull us, which is typical on how our mind works. We're going to just recognize it. The key is habituating the recognition of the thought and really recognizing that space of mind and how thoughts arise and how they dissolve from within that space of mind. And in relationship to that, we use the image of the sky and the cloud being the thought. Sky is this think of a crystal blue, clear, unstained, untainted blue sky. And the cloud is the thought that arises and dissolves within it. Emotion, more powerful than thought, often in its energy, can be thought of as a storm that also arises and will dissolve, impermanent. And relax, just, I think sometimes we take this, although it is very serious business and is very important, sometimes we take it a little bit too, intensely. Like, I got to do this, or I can't do this, struggle with it, and can't, it's just, basically we're just sitting doing nothing. Okay, with that in mind, let's do 9 minutes. Yeah, let's do 9 minutes. I may talk, I may not. By now, you know the drill. Okay. Don't struggle with the thought. Just recognize the thought and go back to the breath. You're going to think. That's what we do. That's what the mind does. It's not a failure. It's not a mistake. It's what the mind does. We are not trying to eliminate thought, stop the thought. We are trying to work with the thought by recognizing it and going back to the breath. In some ways, it's just an experiment, really. Seeing how we can work with the mind. When you go back to the breath, and if you are using that image of the sky, just settle into that natural, great peace of clarity and calm. Make the intention of almost settling into that clarity. And know that it's there. It's really the base level of the mind, the nature of it on an ultimate sense, in an ultimate sense. And it's always there and always accessible. Back to the breath. Leave the thought where it is. If you're feeling a little restless, a little bit of a scattered energy, you can lower your gaze a little bit. That may kind of calm things. And vice versa. If you're feeling almost sleepy, fuzzy, you can raise the angle of your gaze. That often helps a little bit. If you have to shift, you're feeling tension, certain uncomfortable, you can do that. Don't feel like you have to be completely motionless. I mean, it should be still, but you can feel free to adjust and not be so locked. Be relaxed. Okay, great. Um, I'm going to read something from an Instagram post. This is by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. We read from him last time where he was talking about how meditation is absolutely uh, necessary to the practice of Dharma. And I thought this was a great. This is on a Instagram site called Vagra_wisdom, VAGRA_wisdom. Think bigger. It is time to think bigger and open our minds to the possibility that non-duality does exist. Talking about that bigger view, right? You may not be philosophers or great meditators, but there is the possibility that greater areas could be open to you if you bother to look, if you bother to open your mind. A larger world exists, but we have never looked at it. We are too concerned with our microscopes or our magnifying glasses. We try to make things bigger by using magnifying glasses, but we have never looked at outer space with our naked eyes. If we looked into it, we could find it, but we don't have to use binoculars and telescopes. We don't need them. They are false pretenses. An immensely larger version of thinking and of celebration is taking place. We could just simply look at it, whatever it is, and enjoy it. And that really goes into what we're talking about view, you know. I think it's really, 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 really important. And we've spoken a little bit about non-duality. And the teachings of the Buddha really talk about non-duality being really the ultimate nature of reality. Like we see things as self and other, but on an ultimate level, think of like a mega objective point of view, we're all, everything is one in a sense, that's where the concept of interdependence comes in. It's very hard to realize and live out of embodying a state of or a concept of non-duality. But if we accept that as a belief, then we can take small steps and relate into smaller ways. I think it's much easier to sink our teeth into the concept of interdependence. In the last year, think of what happened. A small microscopic virus in one part of the world in a very short period of time completely affects on a supremely profound level the entire world. And the same token, how interdependent it's been with scientists and medical workers, now a vaccine. These are things that are interdependence, obvious workings of interdependence, how that's going to affect our lives and make our lives better and restore sanity and economic stability and health and all these things. And this works, and if you think about it, there's nothing that's not interdependent. Even like think of the cushion you're sitting on. Someone made that cushion, somebody had to sit and sew it together or stuff it, and then someone else shipped it, and then someone delivered it to your house. And think of all these, the place where I'm living now, somebody lived here before me, and because of how he took care of the place, and I like the place, now it's my place. It's, my connection to this person exists somehow. It didn't appear out of a vacuum. Somebody built this place. Many people built this place. This is an old house and was built many years ago, but there's a connection between me and those people, who most of whom probably are not alive anymore. It's a good thing to think about. How many, look at all aspects and objects and things in your life, and how many people are connected to these things beyond yourself. So when we talk about the Eightfold Path, which is part of the first teachings of the Buddha, and one of the Eightfold Paths is right view. Interdependence is part of that view. Impermanence is part of that view. Non-duality is part of that view. Okay, I'm going to read another. This is from the Padmamala, Padmamalla, which is a great Instagram site. This is about karma. We've talked a lot about karma in this class, and this is really, this is great. I love this. Generally speaking, we must differentiate between karma and fate. The Buddhist view of karma does not propose that the outcome of an event is 100% determined by our karma, our actions from the past. If we were to say that each person is 100% subject to his or her past karmic actions, then our view of karma would be identical to the view of fatalism. We would be living in a world in which everything is predetermined. We would all have a blueprint of our lives, and there would be little point in practicing the path of Buddhism. There'd be little point in Buddha having presented his teachings so long ago. If our lives were completely predetermined by karma, then those who were 100% predetermined by their karma to attain enlightenment would do so regardless of their actions in this life, while those who were 100% predetermined not to attain enlightenment because of their karma would be unable to attain it regardless of any action they took. There would be no point in presenting the spiritual path of Buddhism, no point in practicing, no point in working hard, unless we had to do it due to a karmic force. From the Buddhist point of view, when we refer to karma, and this is the crux of this, we're not talking about fate, but about a situation in which our actions from the past carry a certain weight and power to affect our present lives. A situation in which our actions from the past carry a certain weight and power to affect our present lives. We do have a blueprint, but it is one in which our past karma and our present karma both carry a certain percentage of the power. For example, there might be a situation in which our past karma carries 50% of the weight. This would mean that there's space, room for present conditions to arise and affect the current situation, for our present karma also to exert half the total influence on that situation. These two Together, past and present karma constitute 100% of our karma, or the totality of the causal elements that are present in any given situation. This is Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche, and I've read from him before in this class. He continues, this is great. From this perspective, our previous karma is like the seed of a flower. Our previous karma is like the seed of a flower. This seed has the potential to grow and produce a beautiful blossom. However, if we were to leave this flower seed on a table for 100 years, then it would not produce any result. In order for the seed to produce its potential result, a number of supporting conditions must come together. Proper soil, proper temperature, sufficient water and sunshine. When these supporting conditions are present at the same time, the seed produces its result, which is the flower. Each of us faces various challenges in our lives. There are karmic consequences from the past as well as from the present taking place in our lives all the time. Even so, these karmic seeds cannot grow without space. We need space in the present moment to grow our results. We have a great opportunity in the present moment to decide how we want to grow this flower and how we want to relate to it. Working with karma means knowing how to balance our previous and present karma. Working with karma means knowing how to balance our previous and present karma, as well as how to work with the energy of the growing seed. For example, imagine that because of my actions in the past, I have a karmic propensity to kill fish. If that karma from the past is very small, perhaps only 25% of the required causal elements, then there will be a natural sense of space so that I can easily avoid repeating the negative actions of killing fish and also the karmic consequences of these actions. Nevertheless, I must make an effort. For example, such a karmically related situation might arise in the form of an invitation for a long weekend or a holiday. A friend might approach me and say, "How about going on a fishing trip? I have a beautiful place in the country on a lake." All of the essential supporting conditions might come together and I might be carried by them toward the fulfillment of this particular past karma. I might follow the 25%, thus increasing it to 100%. Alternatively, I could work with the situation and make an effort to see how I might transcend that karma. Obviously, there's certain actions that bear an extremely heavy karma. I mean, I don't think I have to explain what those are, murder, killing somebody, killing an innocent, killing, out of greed or lust or rage and things like that. And they may take a lot longer. Those karmic energies, talking about percentages, that might be 100% in this lifetime, and the next lifetime it might be a little bit less. It's not the fact that you committed an action doesn't predetermine exactly what's going to happen. It depends on the causes and conditions of the present moment. So basically, when actions kind of create these karmic seeds, and the karmic seeds have the potential to ripen corresponding to the action. But that seed is dependent, like any seed, on causes and conditions that it is in the present moment. Good stuff. Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche. All right, let's see if we can talk about or answer any questions. Is there someone in the meditation field that has a meaningful impact on your life and practice that you plan to revisit when global health concerns improve? Of course, my teacher, my Lama, who I took refuge with. They call the teacher that you took refuge with your root Lama in Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Mine is Garchen Rinpoche, and I will visit him ASAP. Although, through the miracle of technology and interdependence, and Zoom and YouTube, which was all developed by, computer engineers and scientists, and through their kindness, I was able to have retreat and teachings with my teacher. Do the beads you're wearing have a significance? These are mala beads. They're, you use them to count prayers or mantras. There's a lot of practices in Tibetan Buddhism that have accumulations of mantras and prayers. So there's 100 on the string. So when you get to the tie here, you know you've reached 100. Sometimes people, very often, especially Tibetan Buddhists, there's counters, and so for every 100, it's like an abacus. They're linked to this necklace. For every 100 you move it, and then it's 1,000, and then on this side of the thing, sometimes they accumulate millions of mantras in a lifetime. But the beads themselves, that's what they are. They're counters. They're not anymore. There's not really more of a significance than that. I like to have it sometimes if I'm walking, just holding it. Usually you hold it in the left hand or wear it on the left hand because of the artery that goes to the heart, but it's not completely necessary. But, sometimes just having it in the hand reminds me that I'm a Buddhist and can, instead of just spacing out or walking or wandering, you can actually, while you're walking, do some practice, whatever that practice, may be at the time. What does Buddha say about age and death? That it's inevitable. Old age and death is inevitable. And because of the reality of old age and death, we suffer because if we don't adopt the view, the fact that there really is no death, that consciousness goes on and was not created, and our mind was not created, nor will it be destroyed. But impermanence, age and death, is an aspect of impermanence, and it's a very important teaching of the Buddha. Can you recommend any books or articles for someone who's looking to take their Buddhist practice to the next level? I do that all the time. Go through the classes that are archived on IGTV. Every class, pretty much, I recommend a book or a teacher that has written books. Like this week, it was two, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche and Dzogchen Ponlop Rinpoche. They all have many books. Were you raised religious, spiritual growing up? Were you raised in a religious household? Are you grateful? Kind of not. I mean, I don't really find it much of a bearing on what I'm doing now, to be honest, because I was not really religious for many, many years. I think we're all spiritual. It's just a matter of, are we going to cultivate that or not? In regards to karma, what if you were an alcoholic and addict and you committed acts that were against your values? What can you do now? Good question. Assuming that you're not an addict now is the first thing you can do, is by recovering. And then, listen, we're human beings. We are very fallible. We make mistakes, and part of this life is evolving and learning and growing and getting rid of our bad habits and transcending our bad habits if we're lucky, transcending our, I mean, listen, I can't imagine I've done things, throughout my life that I'm ashamed of or that I regret. I made mistakes, acted out of anger, greed, or, we all did. Hopefully, knowing that, you decide at some point that you want to become better. I think the fact that all of you are here today says that you want to be better human beings. And by that, you want to be better to other people, which is a big deal. And I think that's part of what you can do now, is commit to being a better human being, kinder human being, more patient, cultivating spiritual qualities. What are spiritual qualities? Love, compassion, patience, generosity, mindfulness, things like that. You can also become, in direct relationship to things like alcoholism and addiction. A lot of people who are now great counselors or therapists or help people, help other addicts were addicts themselves. So there's karma, but karma can also be purified. Sometimes it's very painful to purify karma, very often. And these are ways of doing it, Those of you who have gone through 12-step programs, the 12th step, if you're using the 12-step program, is like AA or Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a program which is not with counselors, it's just fellow addicts who are working on recovering from addiction. The 12th step, which you get to after doing a lot of work on yourself, a lot of it's finding a spiritual life, a lot of it's kind of making amends for things you did wrong, and taking an inventory, moral inventory of yourselves and your actions, and really examining, looking at yourself. But the 12th step is to commit to helping others. Those are all, listen, you can't go back and change the past. You can only do stuff now in the future, and you can learn from that. And also, I think, when you look back, like you say, you committed acts that were against your values, have compassion for people who do that now. Or do they even do that against you? And understand that, you were there and you understand what that's like to go against your values. It's a great way to cultivate compassion and understanding. Good question, Violet. Thank you. Any decent temples that you know of in New York City? Kunzang Palchen Ling in Red Hook, New York, not Brooklyn Red Hook, upstate New York. KPL, Red Hook, New York. I am interested in learning about Buddhism and starting the practice. Who, what, where would you recommend? Again, go through the archive classes. There's lots of teachers and books that we recommend here. Or follow me on Instagram. I post teachers and small, excerpts from their teachings all the time. What's the significance of a prayer wheel? So a prayer wheel is, we have one here. Yeah. This is a prayer wheel. So inside a prayer wheel are thousands, maybe million mantras written. Nowadays, they use microfilm to get really like thousands and thousands of these mantras. Like Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the mantra of Chenrezig of Avalokiteshvara. It's a mantra of a Buddha of compassion. So thousands and thousands of prayers inside our mantras, and they make them with different mantras and different prayers for different reasons sometimes. And you spin it clockwise, very important to do it clockwise. And the idea is that spinning these prayers through centrifugal force go out into the world, right? And ultimately what it is engaging, they talk about body, speech, and mind. Using your body, using your speech, using your mind to practice. This is a way of using your body in practice. So instead of just sitting doing nothing, your body is engaged in working towards the benefit of all beings. My teacher, Garchen Rinpoche, is almost constantly spinning a prayer wheel. It's kind of amazing. He told us, someone told me a story. He was sitting next to his translator, my friend Ina, and he wanted to go to sleep, so he gave Ina the prayer wheel. He said, keep spinning it while I sleep. They're on an airplane. And whenever she stopped, he woke up and gave her a look and said, don't forget to spin that prayer wheel. But that's a prayer wheel. Can karma pass from parent to child? Well, your parent, as a parent, you're going to pass on to your child the circumstances and that they're going to be in. So we talk about present karma. Well, a child's present karma is, a lot of it's going to be dictated by the what atmosphere they're living in, where they're living, what's the atmosphere in the house, certain genetic, that you may pass on, a favorable genetic situation, a disease and things like that. So there is elements of karma, but again, karma is not fatalism. You know, the fact that you committed a sin doesn't pass somehow to the child unless it's in terms of the current situation, right? What's an example of that? So say you robbed somebody and you got caught, and then you had to go to jail, and you come out of jail, and your situation is very difficult because of that. You're away for a long time or whatever. The child's going to deal with that in terms of being in that environment. You know what I mean? I hope that's clear. What inspired you to become a Buddhist? That's a long story, but a lot of it was dissatisfaction. Let's put it that way, and unhappiness. How best should we deal with the fear of death and the experience of losing a loved one? Well, it's very hard to lose a loved one, Buddhist or not Buddhist, practicing or not practicing. That's part of love, is mourning and grief when you love, But how should we deal with the fear of death? I mean, practicing Buddhism certainly is a good way when you start to deal with the idea of reincarnation. I recently watched a few YouTube shows about foods from other countries. One show had prawns cooked from a street food market. They were getting cooked alive over an open fire. I struggled watching this. I had to turn away. I took a moment to think about the suffering and help me move on in that moment to hold a space for those prawns. Do you think this is in some way a form of karmic seeding? I mean, I think you kind of connected to I think you connected to the fact that those are fellow sentient beings and they're suffering, and it may make you want to be a vegetarian. I remember first I stopped eating. I've been vegetarian for a long time, and I was a vegetarian when I was a teenager, but for other reasons, not for because I just didn't want to like participating in the killing and the suffering. Um, but first I stopped eating meat, but I was still eating fish, and then we were on a vacation and we were on a boat, and someone was fishing and they caught a fish, and the fish then was on the deck of the boat, and the fish was hanging on the hook and obviously in pain and suffering and flopping around, and just I remember my wife and I were looking at it, we were just like, it was horrendous. I mean, listen, if you eat fish or you eat meat, that's up to you. I don't really judge people who do that. My kids eat meat. That I'm talking from my point of view, where my mind went and is about that, and it made me not want to eat it anymore. How did you meet Garchen Rinpoche? Through a friend. I had already been in the Buddhist community a little bit and going to teachings, and you start making your way. You go to one teaching and you hear about another, and what made you feel that Garchen was the one to be your root lama? I mean, um, oh, that's cake. Hi, cake. It's hard to say that. I think it's just it's almost like falling in love. You know. There's certain qualities that Garchen Rinpoche had that at the time made a profound impact on me. But I had seen him, I think, a year before I met him on YouTube, because I met a nun. I was working on a pilot in Atlanta, and I met a nun, a Buddhist nun, and she said her teacher was Garchen Rinpoche, who I had never heard of. And I watched one of his YouTube videos, and I was very new to Buddhism at the time, and I really didn't understand anything that was going on when I was watching him, and I didn't really think that much about it at all. And then a year later, I wound up meeting him. I'm first going to a teaching of his, and at that point, everything clicked. But a lot of it's where you're at the time, not necessarily the teacher's qualities, but where you're at, and what you know what you're able to perceive. I perceive Garchen Rinpoche as an enlightened being, as like a Buddha, and someone else may see him as a nice old man. Regarding the meditation aspect, is it best to do it at the same time every day, or when I feel that I need to? I think it's best to do it as much as every day if you can, at the same time and at the same place as much as you can. It helps with the discipline of it and progress. Often, if you do it whenever you feel you need to, you'll find reasons not to do it. It's like exercise. I'm much better when I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to whatever class to work out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time, and I commit to a teacher or something like that. Okay, this is the last question that we're going to dedicate. This might be a big question, but if we can be reincarnated as animals, etc., does this mean the mechanics of Buddhism existed before human beings did? Absolutely. Yeah, I would say so. Think of the Big Bang. I mean, Buddhism is not at odds with the Big Bang. I think it just kind of presupposes that there's been an infinite number of Big Bangs before and will be after. Also, time is an abstract, really. We like to think of time as very linear, but we're not really sure, and neither are physicists, that that's actually true. I'm a bit concerned about a friend who has a violent past. He gets dark and physically ill. I love him, but I wonder how to help him. Patience, compassion. How can I help him? Or should I continue to love him and let it go? Keep him company. How do I cope with him? Sometimes taking difficult feelings out on me verbally. Well, allowing him to take out difficult feelings verbally, allowing him to commit negative actions is enabling him and not beneficial. So part of it maybe is to be honest. Part of it may be to not be friends with him, so he can learn that he needs to he needs to kind of address certain things to have that kind of privilege of your friendship. um and you can pray for him. You can meditate on seeing him as like above your head, almost like a Buddha, something like that, because we all have Buddha nature, so you're kind of seeing that and making an aspiration for him. Okay, let's dedicate the merit accumulated from today's practice to the benefit of all beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you for being here today. See you next week.